Sherill Milnes, who lives in New York City, he has an easy commute to Lincoln Center.
Baritones generally are the bad guys. We play lots of grim people. Tenors get to be the lovers. We always love the soprano. She doesn't love us. She loves the tenor. Tenor loves her. We're the trois of Menage a Trois.
Milnes never appeared in a spaghetti western, but Italian opera lovers came to know him as the cowboy baritone. He grew up on a farm in the Chicago suburb of Downers Grove.
If an American mentions horses, you could say farm, we milked cows, dairy farm and all of that, or even Illinois. That doesn't mean anything. If you say horses, that means cowboy. These are boots from Hamlet, from a variety of other century carriages. These are baritone boots. See, these aren't cowboy boots, they're baritone boots. I am a full stomach singer. That is, I have a big meal as close to the performance as makeup and costume allows, which usually means 2.5 hours, 3 hours before curtain, I start to eat, and I pack it away. Big meal. When I'm full, I feel strong. The brass blows very hard when the baritone is singing. You don't have strings. They have the brass doing the same thing. So there's a lot more sound in the pit, often, when the baritone is singing. So we have to kick a little bit more. So in that sense, it might be more wearing on the voice. One has to be careful and try not to sing by sound. Sing by sensation. Because sound to the singer is already faulty. We hear a little bit out of the mouth and into the outer ears, which of course is the total way that everyone else hears. We hear partly that way, and then we hear at least the same amount, if not more, inside, traveling through the bone structure and through the inner ear. We hear ourselves both ways, which gives us a very different image of our sound than every other listener. We should try to sing by the feel of it, which is kind of, I mean, it's a silly thing, but one of the things I use is the subway and the passing express trains. They make so much noise that you can't hear your sound. You feel the vibration, the buzzes, the concentration, the focus point. But it is kind of a fun check when an express train goes by to do some high vocalizing and feel. Then you hear nothing and you go totally by the sensation. I still got a little lunch left. I need more subways.
So that is.
I used to be articulate. I'm going to talk about people with whom I sang, and I think didn't have anything to do with the footage you just saw. The greatest single voice was probably Leontyne Price. It was just an avalanche of sound. However, lots of other sopranos, Montserrat Caballé, who could spin phrases, and Joan Sutherland, who didn't have the opulence of Leontyne Price's sound, but did such spectacular phrases with Bunning. Actually, we don't have the Puritani, we don't have a clip of the Puritani, do we? No. So the beautiful aria, what is it, soprano aria in Puritani? Quella voce.
Quella voce.
Quella voce is actually, I'm talking to Jim Morris yesterday about it. There's a baritone and a bass underneath. It's really a trio, but any soprano really does it as an aria. And I even said to Bunning, who was conducting, Richard Bunning, her husband, who was conducting those performances, maybe we should just duck out and let her sing the aria by itself, even though Bellini wrote 2 other parts in there, and he didn't let us do that.
Well, I had a chance to actually work a little bit with Joan Sutherland, just a spectacular talent and voice. But there was such an interesting profile, and it goes along really with what we've talked about, is singers come with many different gifts. Some of it is just an extraordinary sound. Some of it is that they're amazingly musical. Others is that you just believe the character, even if there's vocal issues, you feel it's the character that's singing with problems, not them.
Right.
There's so many different things about an artist that make them who they are. And with Joan, she had the most amazing high extension, Joan Sutherland. Her diction led a lot to be desired. Oftentimes you weren't sure what she was singing, but you didn't care. And I remember with Sherill, for the Cardiff Singer of the World competition, which is the most important competition really in the world. Dmitry Horostovsky has won that.
And the Welsh baritone.
Yeah, Bryn Terfel has won it. And so, so Joan was one of the judges, along with Sherill, and there was always just a myriad of opera stars that were judging it and heads of companies. And Sherill, you said the one thing she kept saying when she was next to you?
Well, we were sitting next to each other, and I heard a Russian mezzo, I think it was, Adieu Forêt, the Tchaikovsky, that she sang it in Russian. And I'm thinking, gee, it would really be extra good, because the voice was fine, if she would just dig into the words a little bit more, so it sounded like a language and not just vowels. And then while I'm thinking that, Joan, who liked to just talk to herself out loud, said, "Oh, too much diction, too much diction." I didn't say anything, sitting next to one of the greatest sopranos of our time.
So priorities, but I had one of the things that I've done that we were going to discuss today is the time that I was traveling with Sherill, he was still in mid-career. So there was a lot of traveling all over the world with a lot of great people on the stage that he was sharing, and some wonderful experiences. And one we're going to share with you a little bit later. But in this particular instance, in running around, I wasn't good at standing still. Not that that would be any surprise to most of you. So I developed something called a conversation with. And I became an editor of Classical Singer magazine, which is still in existence today. And what I did is I would go to develop focus groups of young singers and say, if you could have dinner with a famous artist, what would you ask them? So I ended up finding 5 really great questions that were sort of similar with all these student bodies. And so I went around with Sherill, and every time we were with a famous person or somebody that I knew had something to say, I would interview them. And, you know, I had a chance to interview some of the most important people in the operatic world. All 3 of the tenors, Joan Sutherland, Anna Moffo, Mirella Freni, you name it. So it was a very exciting thing that I was able to do. And I did it for about 2.5 years. And so when I interviewed Joan, who really didn't know how to describe what she did, she just sort of did it as part of her DNA. I remember asking her about her high extension and how she sang those beautiful high notes. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm taping it, and I'm gonna get the secret to the sauce. And I can't for the life of me figure out what she was saying, because I don't know that she knew.
She could do it.
She could do it.
She couldn't explain it.
She gestured a lot about something like this, but there really wasn't a whole lot of description as to what she was doing. So I never really got the secret sauce to Joan Sutherland's high notes, but it was exciting to watch her gesture and talk about her amazing art. So Sherill, do you want to talk a little bit? We played for you the last time, if you were here for the last time we all were together. We shared with you a little snippet of Sherill's episode that he did of Love Sydney with Tony Randall and Susie Kurtz. But we ran out of time. We didn't get to play all of it. So we're actually going to back up in the show. We thought we'd start this particular session together because we're going to be talking about people with whom he shared the stage.
It also shows a little bit that I played other things.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to play the beginning of the Love Sydney episode, and you're going to see Sherill play the bass. dance band bass.
And then are we going to go into the prologue in English?
And then,
Right
so the storyline is that Tony doesn't recognize that it's Sherill Milnes and asks him to come and be a clown at Swoozy's daughter's, Sydney is her name, birthday party. So Sherill shows up in a clown costume and sings the prologue. So a little background though, Sherill, for this particular episode, one, your son Sean is one of the kids in the party. So you'll see someone that looks like Theo, and that's Sean. And Theo is our son. And there also the words, he wrote it, he put an English translation to it. Sherill wrote this English translation. Typically, of course, it's sung in Italian. So we're going to play through now the very beginning of the Love Sydney episode where they have their exchange. And we're going to cut to Sherill singing the prologue. And as we mentioned last month, if you remember, John Spong, being Cheryl's pianist, is playing the piano here as well, of course. So here is the next clip. And no title here.
Welcome to the Club Soda and another Sunday treat. Sitting in with the band, Mr. Sherill Milnes. So let's give him a real Club Soda welcome.
Who's Sherill Milnes?
See you later.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon with Weaver Copeland and the band. We'd like to do a little number that made me famous in my hometown of Downers Grove, Illinois. Weaver? 1, 2, 3, 4. Say it's only a paper moon sailing over a cardboard sea, but it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. Yes, it's only a canvas sky hanging over a muslin tree, but it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. Without your love, it's a honky-tonk parade. Without your love, it's a melody played in a penny arcade. It's a Barnum and Bailey world, just as phony as it can be. But it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. Without your love, it's a honky-tonk parade. Without your love, it's a melody played in a penny arcade. It's a Barnum and Bailey world, just as phony as it can be. But it wouldn't be make-believe if you believe in Thank you very much.
Isn't he wonderful?
He's good.
He's all right. When you're a little older, you'll be more discriminating.
Oh, I wish I had the nerve to ask Sherill Milnes for his autograph.
What for?
Because I happen to love his voice.
Why don't you just go and ask him for it, Mom?
No, couldn't. I don't want to bother him. Some people hate giving autographs. I consider it an intrusion.
Lori Morgan, may I have your autograph?
She doesn't give autographs, big guy.
Please, sit down.
I don't want to intrude.
Intrude.
Mommy, now you can ask him for his autograph.
I don't give autographs. I consider it an intrusion.
This is Sydney Shore, and this is my daughter, Patty.
Hi, Patty. Sydney?
Pleased to make your acquaintance.
I really love your singing.
Why, thank you.
Got a very pleasant voice for a band singer. You know who he reminds me of? One of my all-time favorites, Snooky Lanson.
Sydney,
What?
get up.
Why?
Sit down.
What did I do?
I saw you do the clown last month. You were terrific.
Thank you.
You're a clown?
On occasion.
Will you be a clown at my birthday party tomorrow?
But, sweetie, we've got our clown, Sydney.
2 clowns would be more fun.
I don't think so.
Patty, Mr. Mills isn't that kind of clown.
Maybe I am. I've had my share of laughs on stage, not always intentionally.
Thanks anyway, but these kids are a pretty tough audience. I know how to handle them.
Please, it's my birthday. Will you please come, Mr. Milnes?
Patty.
Sure. I could never resist a charmer like you.
Patty, you can't ask Sherill Milnes to be a clown at a birthday party.
Why not? I've got the costume.
Yay!
So what do you charge to do a kid's party?
Same as bar mitzvahs.
How's $30 sound?
Don't you know who Sherill Milnes is?
Sure he does. I'm a good band singer. Sydney, it's a deal.
Okay, you bring your own seltzer bottle.
Oh,
See you tomorrow, Patty. Excuse me, Weaver wants to do another number.
Wait a minute. Here's a $10 advance.
Look, Sherill, you do
No,
not
it's
have-
okay. I can use the $30.
You dumbbell.
What? I shouldn't have given him the $10?
Thank you. I'm gonna have another clown.
But sweetheart, I'm your clown. Don't you remember I was your clown last year?
And the year before, and the year before that.
Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those keepers?
Okay, everybody, settle down, settle down. We have a great surprise now. Sherill Milnes, the singing clown. Now, this is from the opera Pagliacci.
Opera?
It's a story about clowns. And right before the opera begins, one of the clowns comes out and explains that clowns are more than just a funny face. They're people, too.
It's a disaster. I'm sorry, sweetheart.
Hello, hello, young ladies and gentlemen, you'll pardon me if alone I'm presented. I'm the prologue. The author loves the custom of a prologue before his story. So partly to revive for you the old tradition, he sends me to sing before you. But not to tell the old-fashioned story. The tears that we shed for you here are false ones, and the sighs and cries and the pain that is told must not alarm you now. No, no, the author instead will borrow a chapter from life with its laughter and sorrow. Is not the actor a man with a heart like yours? And it's for you that our author has written. And the story he tells is true. A song of tender memories deep in his listening heart one day was ringing. And then with a trembling heart he has written a great story and filled the plot with sighs and tears. Therefore, you will see love as human beings love each other. You'll see the result of hate and passion, hearts that weep in agony, cries of rage and torment and bitter love. Consider when you look at us dressed in these old funny costumes. We have human hearts beating with passion. We're human just like you, with poor frail bodies. And like you, my friends, we are breathing the air of this world. Forlorn and lonely. You will soon hear the story. Watch how the plot unfolds before you. And now, on with the
I don't know what they're so excited about. He didn't do anything funny.
Okay, that was a rather long clip, but it was worth showing. It's a lot of fun to watch. And as we said the last time, Tony and Sherill were good friends for a long time and have had a lot of great experiences. In fact, if Dr. Dabrowski is still on the call, Bernie Dabrowski was the dean at Northwestern during the time that we were there and brought Sherill to the university. In fact, I was very honored to be on the faculty for a short time. And when Tony was brought there to receive an award, I think an honorary doctorate, I remember, Sherill, you and Tony singing Cecilia,
which we showed last time.
in Illinois. So, right, Bernie, that was a great memory. Yes, having Tony there. You have had the pleasure of a lot of really notable people in the arts at your prestigious music school, and now that you're emeritus, finally retiring, you have a lot of great memories yourself. We should have you do one of these sessions sometime. So we're moving on to our Burt Lancaster time, I believe. So do you want to tell some stories about meeting Burt Lancaster and how you connected to Burt?
Well, Burt Lancaster, of course, a big name in the movie world. People didn't know he loved opera. And I was doing Hamlet, first time in my life doing Hamlet in San Diego when Tito Capobianco, way before Pittsburgh, he was the boss, hired me to do Hamlet. And we were in musical rehearsal, and this gentleman walked in and greeted Tito at a baseball cap with the visor down. You couldn't really see who it was. He sat over in the corner. None of us knew who this was. Then there was a break at some point, and Tito took me by the hand and said, I want you to meet somebody. He went over there, and Burt Lancaster is sitting there. We were all kind of flabbergasted. Tito had asked him to stage, would he be interested in being a stage director for a production? And he said he loved opera, as I said before. And he said, let me see the curve, the span of rehearsals. Let me be around to see how they progress, and then I can give you an answer. Unfortunately, he passed away. I think they had an agreement, but he passed away within 2-3 years after that. And so that never came to fruition.
That would have been amazing. Imagine that.
Well, we're talking, relative fames, opera star. Okay, I'm an opera star, but that's pretty far down the list of stars for most people. Movies and rock stars, whatnot, way up the list. Sports figures, of course. It was interesting, Burt Lancaster being a very famous name would never go in the front of a restaurant. He only went to restaurants where he knew the maitre d' or the manager or the owner. And he would go in the back with the baseball cap, pulled, with the visor pulled down so that he could eat. Otherwise, there'd just be people asking for an autograph. Relative fames. This was probably the most famous guy, but you could certainly tell a difference in audience responses and people around him if they would see Burt Lancaster, even Tony. Fortunately, the opera world, maybe Luciano an exception, were famous but not so famous, and you can walk around and not be recognized, which can be a blessing.
I think my favorite memory of that old guard of Hollywood was, because I think there was a different view of the operatic world, and there was more of a collegial feeling between that generation and the stage, because it was more part of the zeitgeist, I think, than it is now. And the Players Club, which was a prestigious, beautiful actors club in New York City, was where we would hold one of our programs called Opera's Drama. And so we were often invited to events, and Gregory Peck was being honored in a particular night, and we had been invited to be a guest. And that was probably the most memorable night in terms of Hollywood experiences, even with the Kennedy Center Honors that we've been to so many times and have met so many amazing people. But that particular night started with us walking in the door, and at the top of the stair was Lauren Bacall, who outstretched her arms to Sherill and said, "Sherill Milnes." And I thought, wow, that doesn't get any better than that. Not just as Lauren.
I thought the same.
But she knew his name. And by the end of the night, here we were sitting at the table down at the grill with Celeste Holm, Lauren Bacall, Gregory Peck. Who else was in that group?
I don't remember who else. Those are the biggest.
We actually have a picture that memorializes it.
It's in the autobiography.
Yes, and I remember showing my mom the photo and saying, "Mom, I can't believe I was at the table with all of these amazing legends that I had watched as a child." So so those are great memories. So do you want to play just, this is the actual in Italian, just the tail end of a video that Sherill put together in Eastern Berlin before the wall had gone down. And he had asked Burt Lancaster to be the MC of this. It's called Sherill Milnes and Friends. And there were several people that were part of it, Schreier and Domingo and Freni and all these other great operatic names, Peter Schreier. And so Burt was the MC. So this is kind of the beginning. We just wanted to give you a little snippet of Sherill's exchange with the great Burt Lancaster. So here it is. It's one video that I'm segueing, so it'll move on from here.
Il concetto mi dissi,
same aria you just heard, but in
ora ascoltate come gli è svolta. Andiamo,
In the prologue to Leoncavallo's Pagliacci, which you have just heard, the clown Tonio introduces himself to the audience. And I want to introduce myself to you. I'm Sherill Milnes, and I'm an opera singer, a traveling player like Tonio. Singing is my life and my work. And tonight, I want to take you into my world with my friends and let you meet some of the characters I portray.
Hold on a minute now, not so fast, my friend. Like everybody else, I'm crazy about clowns. And I remember so well seeing you that the first time that you sang, Tonio, I was deeply moved by the touching and gentle way in which you portrayed him. It was so different than any other singer I've ever known.
Well, Bert, to begin with, it's a fabulous part. True, there are those who see Tonio as a kind of minor Iago, but I never believed that Tonio means to cause serious trouble. But he can be ugly if rubbed the wrong way. His main problem is that he's deformed.
Deformed? Well, I don't recall you ever playing him, well, like a hunchback, like Rigoletto.
No, I don't see him that way at all. I love Tonio. I empathize with him. He's just a little backward, so I affect a slight limp.
Limp?
Yeah. And sometimes I have a problem with that limp. I get so swept up in the music that I forget to limp. So I take great pains to avoid it.
How do you mean?
I take this piece of wood and I put it in my shoe. It sometimes hurts a little, but it's a constant reminder and it keeps me limping. La-da, 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 la-da. La 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 la.
I can talk.
This is CBS Sunday Morning.
Oh, that's
so.
a CBS one.
Yeah.
That was interesting. In fact, in a park in then East Berlin, they set up that merry-go-round, or what's the old word? Carousel. Yeah, there's even another word. At any rate, in the middle of this park, the Fernseh and the TV people in Berlin set it up in the park. What I found interesting, you're probably mostly old enough to remember Checkpoint Charlie. And to go from West Berlin into East Berlin, you had to go through Checkpoint Charlie. You had to buy 30 D-Mark, that is East D-Marks, which weren't anything in the West. And you had to buy them with hard currency. This was before euros. Every country had its own denomination. And it was interesting because sometimes Bert and I would be going in together maybe 2 or 3 times in the same day. In, out kind of thing. Well, the Polizei, the Volkspolizei, the folk police who were running this, I found it was very interesting. They, even if they know who you were, and I had to assume they know who Burt Lancaster was, maybe not me, but certainly Burt Lancaster. And they never did a smile. They would look and then passport, one eye up, look, and back down, and you never saw their eyes again. They just did the one look, no smile, no recognition, even though we were going in and out in 2 weeks' time. We must have gone across it, at least a dozen times. And they showed no recognition, which I found quite interesting at the time.
Yes. So let's see. This is another one of those promotion, media clips that had happened in Sherill's career. CBS Sunday Morning. I'm sure you all see that show. It's a wonderful show. It's been around for a long time. They had done a special about Sherill, which in its entirety is quite long and very beautiful. But we thought we'd show a little snippet of it, and something a little different is, as you know, getting into character takes a little bit of time, not just mentally, emotionally, musically, but also with just the logistics of makeup and costume. So we thought this would be interesting to show you because it includes Sherill transforming into the role of Rigoletto, which is an opera for which he's very famous. So this is a little snippet of a CBS Sunday Morning special.
Is this the Rigoletto makeup?
No.
It's not that.
Yeah.
Okay.
His favorite roles are in the operas of Giuseppe Verdi, the Doge in Simone Boccanegra, Iago with Placido Domingo as Otello,
They say tenors get the girls and they have all the love duets, and by and large, not maybe all, but by and large it's true. But I think the characters in the Verdi operas are far more interesting as baritones. All the world loves lovers, but it I think it can be a little bit boring to always be a lover. Sweat. Singing is sweat. Baritones cover just every kind of thing. Often we're kind of the trois of a menage a trois, operatically speaking. We're always loving the girl that the tenor loves, and ending up being frustrated, either having him killed or being shot ourselves in other cases. More makeup, that's kind of the drag part. Baritones and basses are subject to far more makeup than beards.
It takes a long time to get me ugly.
Good one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the call
Sherill Milnes is 6'2". He is transforming himself into a hunchback dwarf. Not an easy task, because everything about Sherill Milnes seems extra large, from his shirt size to his personality. Tonight for the Pittsburgh Opera, Sherill Milnes is Rigoletto.
Okay, so yeah, you were pretty ugly.
Oh yeah. Well, you learn right away as Rigoletto. You ask the stage director, is it a right hand or a left hand hump? Because it changes the staging. It absolutely reverses the staging. If you're here, so then you would embrace Gilda this way. But if it's on this side, everything is reversed. So that's what I tell students. You got to find out where the hump is. And another thing, physiologically, a hunch on the back is one that goes straight back. It's not here. It's not up. However, if you're standing to the audience this way and the hump is in the back, they don't see it. You don't look like a cripple. So I always built, as well as this, which was physiologically true, I would build up here. So no matter how you are turned to the audience, they see the deformity. And for me, that's very important.
Well, it's what defines him as a character, which is very important to the pathos of the story.
Right.
Tell the story of the baritone who didn't realize where the hump sat in his costume. So
well,
I like this story.
Costas Pascalis, a Greek baritone who has since passed away, who was very well known in his time. He was in Vienna. I was in the audience, and he's singing Rigoletto. Well, that's something else a Rigoletto needs to find out. You usually have a vest. Sometimes the hump is in the vest, and sometimes it's in the jacket. Well, he is singing Rigoletto, and one of the normal things in the Cortigiani scene is that he takes the jacket off and throws it down in defiance of the courtiers. Well, the hump was in the jacket and not in the vest. So in essence, he took off his jacket and threw his hump. I almost yelled up, Costas, your hump is on the floor. I didn't do that, but he didn't know that. It's something you got to find out.
Well, it's one way to heal, right? Just take it off.
Throw your hump on the floor.
We actually, just a little interesting bit of trivia. I don't know if you noticed the costume that Sherill was wearing. Beautiful costume. It's red with a lot of little dangly things and their little bells on them. And then what you didn't see is that he has a little jester wand. You know, he talks to the jester. And of course, if you know history, it was the court jester that really had the ear of the king and was able to help tell the king what the people were thinking without insulting the king, because he did it all through jest. So this little character is very important. Well, that particular costume, it was from Pittsburgh. And at that time, Sherill mentioned the name Tito Capobianco, who was a very famous stage director. His wife was an amazing choreographer. And a lot of the work that they did is sort of based now in our history, because they worked a lot with Sherill and with Beverly Sills and so many great artists. And he was in San Diego first and then in Pittsburgh. In fact, there is a Tito Way, a street named after him. Such a great arts administrator.
Well, he did some classes for us a few years ago.
Absolutely. He did a lot in Savannah and elsewhere. So with that relationship, Sherill was able to keep that costume and that gesture. And it actually, we just bought a house in Savannah. Some of you may know. We've been keeping it under lock and key until we actually were able to move into a home. So now the costume will actually be able to come out and be displayed on a high shelf somewhere. Because before in our home, we've had an opera set sort of on a high ledge where we have the briefcase of Leonard Warren. It was his, Leonard Warren was sort of the predecessor of Sherill as a Verdi baritone, and was an amazing artist and actually died on the stage at the Met. And the briefcase that he owned was the briefcase that was in his dressing room the moment that
his sister gave it to
the moment
me.
that he died on the stage, and his sister actually gave him that briefcase. So we have the briefcase, and we have the Rigoletto costume and various other opera things that are really fun. When the singers come to our house, they love to look at them. And of course, you can imagine the baritones are just blown away when I say, you see that briefcase over there? Look at the name on it. And they say, oh, Leonard Warren, are you kidding? So it's fun to watch the artists respond to the legacy that Sherill has. So speaking of legacy, let's go on to Alfredo Kraus, because Alfredo Kraus was not one of the three tenors. He was not Carreras, Domingo, Luciano, and if you live more in the pop world attached to that, Bocelli, although, you know, Andrea really wants to have an operatic career, but his concertizing has been a wonderful thing for our industry and a wonderful thing for millions of people. So Alfredo is quite a renowned tenor, a beautiful voice, a lovely person, and really deserves all the legacy and the accolades that all of the other tenors, Richard Tucker and the ones I just mentioned, deserve.
It was a bigger career in Europe, actually, than in
That's
America.
right.
Alfredo was old enough, was Spanish, actually, from the Canary Islands. And he was old enough and had been educated in the old style. So if he was introduced to a lady, he would bow, and he might not touch the hand with his lips, but do the kind of obligatory pretend to kiss the hand. That's the way he was brought up. He was a great, great guy.
Well, how I was introduced to Alfredo Kraus was I was a big Maria Callas fanatic when I was a young singer. I
still are.
I still am a young singer?
No, yes.
Oh, I'm still a Maria Callas fanatic. I
Right.
just wanted to qualify that. So I would listen to everything. I watched every video. I listened to every recording. I read every biography about her. And the very first thing that I was introduced to was her Traviata. And of course, La Traviata being such a famous piece, but Kraus was her Alfredo. And I remember the beauty of the sound and the pathos of the sound. So you're going to hear that in this next clip. This is very special. This is the Pearl Fishers duet. You all have heard us sing it at the JEA or in our concerts at SVF with various artists, Chad Sonka, Carl Moe, etc. Well, this is Sherill Milnes and Alfredo Kraus. And I know some of these images are grainy, and I apologize, but these are old pirate recordings that we really aren't allowed to show in any real public place, but shh, it's Zoom. So here we go.
It's a Tucker Gala one.
Yes, this is a Richard Tucker Gala.
At the Music Foundation Gala at Carnegie Hall, Alfredo Kraus and Sherill Milnes return with Maestro Richard Bonning for a much-loved duet from Bizet's The Pearl Fishers. In ancient Ceylon, two friends remember their childhood together and swear eternal brotherhood. Alfredo Kraus and Sherill Milnes have sung Au fond du temple saint from Bizet's The Pearl Fishers. And next up, Richard Tucker sang on this very stage with his frequent colleague Robert Merrill. Mr. Milnes sang the clown Tonio in Pagliacci at the Met in 1970 in the very performance in which Richard Tucker first portrayed the role of Tonio.
So there you are. You can see what I mean. And this was, you know, Alfredo Kraus at the end of his career, and you can hear that sweetness in the sound. Such a beautiful, beautiful tenor and such an elegant, elegant performer. Yeah. And just FYI, if you are, if you could see the elegant and very beautiful conductor, that is actually Joan Sutherland's husband, Richard Bonning.
Richard Bonning.
So a little bit of trivia there. So ladies and gentlemen, this is always so much fun. I personally love sharing the plethora of Sherill's career with all of you. We have one more little clip just apropos of our festival. As you could see the little video that Sherill made, just a clip of it actually, it wasn't a little video, but the on-site video of the Sherill Milnes and Friends was basically a film that were music videos. And indeed, that is what we're going to be doing this summer. And we're coming back to you in July to show you a sneak peek and so show you some things that made it to the editing floor for our Food for Thought in July. So do not miss that and tell your friends, because no one else will see what you're going to be seeing in that July time with you all on that Thursday. Orly, what's the date of that? It's the 26th or something like that. When is the next time that we are we together?
The 25th of July.
25th of July. So please mark your calendars. So we thought that we would end this with just a little tiny snippet. This is not necessarily a vocal presentation, but the festival will have 11 nights of 45 to 50 minutes of a lot of musical videos, a lot of different curated concerts, and like if you were on before, I mentioned a lot of staged things, so operatic things that were happening off-site. So the Zerlina is in New York City, and the Don Giovanni is in Quebec. And we put them together in a music video. So it'll be really, really interesting. But I can't give those things away, but I can show you one of our little segments. So I'll leave you with this very fun segment that'll be a commercial in between our musical events in the festival. So this is a different kind of Sherill video. Oh, wrong one, pardon me. Let me do that again. There we go. There we go. Oh, what's happening? That's not right. Let me get rid of that. Sorry. Technology. Here we are. Okay, now we're ready. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bizantz with your 20 seconds plus of hand-washing music. This installment features the lovely De Vieni alla Finestra from Don Giovanni. Here we have the Don serenading Don Elvira's maid in Act 2, notable for its delicate accompaniment on the mandolin. Well, here it is on a piano, and feel free to hum along if you know the tune. Sherill Milnes, I hope you're listening. Turn your faucets on now.
Wash your hands of all technological things.
So ladies and gentlemen, that's the public service announcement for you. Don't forget to wash your hands. Be very, very safe. Thank you for joining us on the Zoom call. And, you know, I know it's hard. We can't be together. And we really always enjoy being with you all at the JEA. But it's a gift to be able to come to you in this particular manner. So again, thank you, Orly. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, JEA, for having us.
Thank you for joining us. And I just want to clarify the 23rd of July. Someone said they heard me wrong. So July 23rd, we would love to have you back. Can't wait to see all your faces again and to hear more from Sherill. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you. It was fun.
And we'll make sure we send the right link. Sorry. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
You should have told me we were unmuted.